Hello y'all on YouTube, this is Rob from Rob's Nerdy Knives. Today I have a interesting little tuning I'm going to do on this Knafs Lander. This is Knafs Knife Company or Knafs Company. This is a Ben Peterson design. This is with the Mars Valley Fat Carbon design. Sorry, not red fat carbon. It does have red and orange mixed in together, which I think is cool. And this is in the S35VN steel, so you can see that. That's a much nicer blade steel. I wanted to do a little tuning on the detent because it's a little tight. I already have one Lander and I enjoyed this one a lot, but I did tune that detent so it's much lighter and more drop shutty, right? Now this is D2 and kind of the flat G10 scales. These are more contoured, so they're a little nicer. So I just kind of wanted to take that apart and do a little bit of that. This is not going to be a super detailed one. We're going to take it apart. I'll speed that up and then I'll look at the hardware, maybe show you how I'm going to tune it. If we do much tuning, it's probably going to be very, very minimal because it's really close. And then we'll probably oil it and maybe clean it up a little bit just to make sure everything is good inside. All right. So typically, I believe the little screws are T6s and the big screw here, the pivot is a T8. So we'll start off with that. So this, as you can see right here, where they are, T6. Now this is a T8 torque screw, WIA bits, and a WIA screwdriver. Highly recommend that. All right, I'm gonna take off the little washers here. That's interesting. Not really sure what that is. That usually could be a Rockwell hardness, maybe just checking it, I don't know. Here's the pin stop. Those are really important, don't lose those guys. Clean the inside scale. These are the liners. So this is a steel liner, as you can see, and there's the steel liner over here. Now, I didn't take the two screws off to take this off because I really don't think we need to get there. Everything is self-contained in there, which we can just leave it as is. That is, I don't think that's necessary. I will clean the washers real quick to make sure there's nothing in there. This is a microfiber cloth. Matter of fact, this is a WE Civivi, so WE knives. I have quite a few of these, so I have quite a few of these cloths. I use them to clean the knives. They're really great. Technically, I use them first to clean my glasses because they're great for glasses. Once I get them dirty a little bit, then I use them for cleaning the knives because then that's what they were intended for. But it's just such a nice cloth that at first I kind of like using them for my glasses. All right, so that's the two there. All right, so let's talk about this. Now, this is a steel liner. The thing you have to understand, like with titanium liners or frame locks, they tend to bend a lot less when you start to bend them. These, once you bend them, they're more malleable in a sense. It's a little harder, but it's more malleable. So once you bend it, it's going to go there. You don't want to go back and forth to fatigue the metal here and break it, okay? You want to do just enough. And the way I normally do that is I try to measure it, try to figure out how much room do I have here. So as you can see, I have about a screwdriver going in at an angle's length like that. So that kind of tells me how much distance I have here. Now, if I want it to be real technical, there is another way we can do this. You know, we can get our caliber right here, and I could get in here and see if I can get the measurement. Can I get this measurement? So that's 0.098. So 0.098, I want to make sure I go in just a little bit. So when I do this, I first go just a little bit to see, does that make a difference? The first thing I do is, I have my, okay, so not much. So then we go a little bit. Now, be careful, don't pinch your fingers because it's sharp. Let's see. Okay, so now we've already gotten a little more. So let's go ahead and measure this with the caliber and see how much what we've gotten in here. All right, so 0.07, so definitely 0.28, and I think that's plenty. I'm gonna go with that. And I recommend, don't go crazy at first. Do a little bit of time. Reassembled knife, If you've never done that, it's probably good practice. Definitely, if you're going to practice that, get the cheap one. Do that. Do it on a cheap one first, and then go hog wild crazy at it. Right now, one thing that's cool. This is a captive pivot, and what that means is that I don't know if you can see that this side is flat. That means not this one. Yeah, here we are. So you see how there's a little flat edge right there? That's what's going to keep this from rolling around, okay? So this flat edge is going to go in here, and it's not going to turn. I don't know if you can see that. It's not going to turn because the flat edge goes through that right there to that right there. All right. So to the hole, to the pivot, and that's what's going to keep it locked in place, okay? So I had the pivot on this side originally. I guess it's sort of the show side. It was empty. It was without the screw, like that. All right, so we're gonna put that there. Now, when I put this back together, I do a couple things. I use Loctite 242. It's not the super hard Loctite. Careful when you shake it like that. Sometimes it bubbles up and it'll spill. So I like to let it sit just for a second after I've shook it. And then I use nano oil, and you can't see this. I need to get a new bottle, but this is nano oil 10 weight. I love this stuff. I found this to be very, very great. I wanted to use the rest of it. I got some other oil for Christmas, another manufacturer, but I like it too. But I wanted to use the rest of this. And this is nano oil 85. And this is the heavyweight. This is what I use on the detent ball. And that's the detent ball right there. That's called a detent ball. That detent ball rides the track of the knife right here and goes into the hole. And that's what locks the blade in place, okay? So that's called the detent ball and the track. So let's go ahead and reassemble this. You're just gonna put some oil, I'm gonna put it back together. Probably won't do a lot of talking. I'll speed this up. If you wanna see what I'm doing, just slow it down. Before I finish, I wanted to quickly measure I want to measure the washers. See if I can get that out without making a mess. I wanted to see what these were okay, so they're not, okay, so they're, all right, so they're 3/64. That's the ball size. And then I wanted to measure this real quick because I want to see if Skiff makes some. I know they have some really small ones. I was curious if some of those small ones fit. So we're looking at 0.31 inches for outer diameter. Let's do the inner diameter. Inner diameter is 0.1655 or 0.166 or 0.17. All right, that's the inner diameter. And we already measured that. So that's all I need. So I wanted to keep that on the video so that if I can find Skiffs or some other washers, because I know there's another one called Taco washers. They, I don't know if they make any for these. I doubt it. I think they're very specific on what they make, but that'd be cool. All right, so I'm going to interrupt here real quick. This is a little too much. You don't want to have too much on there. It makes a mess and it gets in places you don't want it to get to. So it's okay to wipe it off. Just a little bit for the threads. That's all you need. And notice I reverse thread it first, and then I find the threads and it goes through nice and easy. You don't want to strip them. All right, so we're done. What I checked for was making sure the action was good. I was making sure it's nice and centered. Everything is centered up here, which is good, especially with the liners, especially when you're adjusting that lock bar, right, on the liner lock. And so you want to make sure you didn't adjust too much where it's not going to engage the tang of the blade and lock it in place. And you don't want blade rock where this is not now seated and flushed against the tang to really lock the knife in there securely to have a safe knife. And then I want to make sure that I can disengage the liner lock comfortably. And it was over there quite a bit. You saw that in the video where I had moved it was it 0.28? I think it was 0.28 or 0.028. Excuse me, 0.02, sorry. 0.028 of an inch, which was pretty significant. It was probably about 20-30% of an adjustment. Didn't seem like much, but that was plenty, and it really helped out the action quite a bit. You can see that already. Starting to drop shut, and this is going to continue to break in much nicer. Now, some people won't ever do that, and they'll allow it to break in for over a year, a couple of years, and that's fine. There's a chance I might want to adjust this and make it tighter if I've had this for an extended period of time and used it quite a bit, and that's fine too. I just enjoy that drop shutty kind of action right away, and you normally you can just tune that pretty relatively easily. I am not a fan of super huge tight detents because I like to be able to reverse flick and manipulate the knife. Oops. When you have a smaller knife, you just got to make sure you have a good grip and get in there to reverse flick it. But you'll also notice that the middle finger flick is a lot easier now with that. That's not working as tightly against, and what it causes the friction is this lock bar, right? It's pushing against the blade, and you saw that little groove that was in there into the detent hole. That detent ball is tracking along the blade here, the tang, just inside the tang of the blade, into the detent ball. So when it comes around here, that's what actually, when you hear it, this little thing right here, that's it going into the detent ball, sliding into the detent hole. And that's what locks it in place and keeps it from falling out and everything. It's not the same when it locks. It locks, the whole lock bar has engaged the tang of the blade, pushed squarely against it, locking it in place from moving around, so it's a secure knife to use, right? And there's a little jimping on this one here, not much, but enough to, do some serious cuts if you wanted to. I mean, this is a relatively small blade, about 2.5 inches, so it's pretty safe in most states. Especially if you have a less than 3-inch law, this is going to be a great knife to carry. But it allows the action just to be a little bit better, I think. It allows me to use it one-handed, not get, super fatigued with the hand. Now, I'm going to be very curious if the Unlock Composites scales are any different or significantly different. I will want to check that out. And I'm kind of curious. Let's take a look at that. How much of a relief? Yeah, it's about the same. Yeah, it's about equal, I would say. Pretty much. This feels, I don't know, it just doesn't feel as easy to get to as this one. And let me see. Okay, so there's a little cutout there. Yeah, definitely. And a little cutout there, you can see that. So, I mean, once I made the detent lighter on this side, it was much easier to use. Likewise with this one. And now it drop shuts, and I like that. Especially with S35V steel. It's going to be a much stronger, better performing steel, and feel more secure about using it if I really get in a situation where I have to cut, and I don't want to cut and then all of a sudden the blade just be like not useful in a very short period of time. And that's always the thing about having a nice steel. Is there a chance that you always need to exhaust just the edge and everything? Usually no. Most of the time you're barely going to use the edge, but you have the premium steel, in my opinion, so that when you do need it, it's there. It's kind of like a parachute. Do you ever want to use a parachute in an airplane? No, but you would like to have it if you're flying, right? So, it's the same thing with a knife. You don't plan to chop logs and cut through, crazy things with a knife most of the time, but if you need to, you want to make sure you have a tool that can do it, right? So that's kind of where I'm at the opinion. Because sometimes some of our tools are very... they're just more for show, right? But even those for show, you still want to be able to use it when you need it, right? And this is definitely going to be that. So, very cool. That's the knife. So if you have any questions about this, feel free to comment down below. If anything you'd like to see or any questions you have for me about this tuning of the detent and cleaning that we did, let me know. I didn't really use alcohol. I do sometimes have alcohol if it was tremendously dirty. I know other people who do this. They will clean off everything with alcohol. If I didn't see a bunch of alcohol or a bunch of material, I'm not going to do that. If it's really bad, then yeah, I will, right? But this one was pretty good. And I would expect it so because it's a brand new knife. But I did want to make sure there was no burrs or anything that got in there. And so that was the goal. And it feels nicer. I'm sure that's mainly due to the detent ball or the lock bar not pushing as hard. But I like it. It still engages nice and securely. I can still roll it up and it locks in place. So, no compromise on that. Just a softer, I would say a softer detent, which I don't have a problem with because, the way I flick it, I'm not looking for some massive explosive. I know some people really want to hear that like kabam, right? Now, I will say there is something nice about a very loud explosion of a detent. And I do have the EMP by EDC relative, and this one has a very nice explosive detent. And I do enjoy that both left and right-handed. So, yeah, I get that, but it's still very manageable, and it doesn't hurt my hand. For some people with gigantic hands or, I guess, incredible finger strength, they can probably unscrew a bolt on a boiler with their bare hands. My stepfather used to be able to do that. He was a mechanic, and man, he had some strong fingers. It was crazy how strong his fingers were. But anyways, I'm not that. I'm an analyst and developer and programmer, so that's what I do. And my hands are not, I don't disassemble, reassemble, build machinery all day long. I'll tinker with stuff, but it's not my main job, right? So my hands aren't going to be as adept or attuned or calloused and strong as some other people. So I have to make up for it with smart tools and other tools to compensate for that. And that's where ingenuity comes in, right? It's great to have the brute force when you need it, but even those guys who have the strength, I guarantee you they'd rather use the tool to save that strength so they're not exhausted and they can do more and do things better. So there you go. That's my thoughts on that. Free editorial, a little Rob's rambling thrown in here with a little kind of education about tuning a detent. Well, like I said, if you have any questions or any ideas or anything you'd like to see, let me know. And if you enjoyed this, please consider hitting the like button down below. And if you've already hit the like button, maybe consider hitting that subscribe button. I sure would appreciate it. Both the subscribe and the like button really helps this channel and me out a lot. Allows us to put on more content and get more material and get better exposure and maybe even have some stuff coming in from different manufacturers and vendors. It would be just tremendous if you find this content of value, interesting, or just fun to watch, And if you've already subscribed, maybe consider hitting that notification button so you'd be notified of future content as it drops. And if you've done all that, maybe check me out over on Instagram at robs_nerdy_knives. That's robs_nerdy_knives on Instagram. Hey, I sure appreciate you guys watching today. You guys have a great day and a great week. Bye.